Today's episode of Inclusion Revolution was recorded at Eastlink Studios in Halifax and broadcast on Eastlink and on VoicePrint. Thank you for listening.
Welcome to Inclusion Revolution with Tova. This week we're very excited to have joining with us Sharon Rutland, who is a human resource manager at the Cambridge Suites here in Halifax. And the reason we've asked Sharon to come on today is because our subject really relates to where Sharon is at as a human resource leader in our community. And that is an employer who is interested in hiring people with disabilities, who is inspired to have an inclusive community representative staff, and as a result has been a real leader in the community in trying to figure out different ways to be inclusive of persons with disabilities in the workplace. But clearly Sharon's facing some challenges as well. So we invited her on to talk a little bit about her successes, because you know, here at Inclusion Revolution we think successive strategy is the key to everything, and then perhaps to even dialogue with me on some of the challenges she's facing, and hoping that some of the information Sharon and I share today also is relevant to you, our listener. And if it's not you, make sure that the right person hears it, because I think this is a really important show. I'm glad to have you always. As you know, you and I have done business before, and I've always been very impressed with the fact that the Cambridge Suites has shown an interest in hiring persons with all types of disabilities, depending on the opportunities and, of course, what's up. Now, I know in our recession today, the first thing we're all thinking is this worse or better? But it is my understanding there still is some hiring going on and opportunities available, and that the Cambridge Suites is definitely looking as one of many employers to integrate persons with disabilities. So tell me, how's it been going for you, or what have you been doing?
Well, we really strive to have a diverse workforce and to have inclusion from, different cultures, people with disabilities. We've struggled some in the area of those with disabilities. We've had some successes. We've definitely had some challenges that didn't work out the way that we wanted them to. And therefore was thrilled when I first met you and realized the training that was available through Reachability, and of course we've utilized some of that already. So for us, we want to learn more. We really want to develop on it. The successes have been good. That has really been motivating for us. Looking at any that weren't as successful, we've learned from them very much.
That's important right there, taking that lesson and actually applying it and trying to do things differently. Can you give me an example, just, a general example, because I'm sure there's a lot of employers with similar challenges, of a challenge that you identified and then worked towards overcoming? Because oftentimes I find that employers, they're convinced that there's extra work and there's a lot to be done, and, we're going to talk a little bit about accommodation, obviously, and some of the challenges you faced or some of the successes you've had as well. And of course I'm here to help you along if you have some questions around that. But can you give me an example maybe of where that you faced one of those challenges and how you managed to work through it? Because I think that's something everyone listening would love to hear about.
Oh, definitely. I think for us the biggest challenges have definitely been with any type of a disability needing accommodation that you just don't visibly see, and not knowing about the disability and any need of accommodation from the beginning.
So they're not telling you, right?
Not telling us, no.
And that's a huge issue, and I need to stop you there, because I think I need to say to everybody that as much as we put the responsibility on employers and hirers to understand people with disabilities and to incorporate them, the person with disability entering that workforce also has a responsibility, certainly in my opinion, and I think you and I have discussed this, to first of all understand their disability, understand how it might get in the way of work so you can have a healthy dialogue, and ideally, in my opinion, to have some of that accommodation in place when you reach out to an employer. And there's a lot of ways of doing that through community agencies and supports, which you can hear more about through our website at inclusionrevolution.com. Please go ahead.
Yeah. So we had an employee who was working on our front desk as a guest services agent. And we started noticing that the employee would, great personality for the job, but at just different times would become very unreliable. Not show up, not call in appropriately, or not call in at all. And it really, because of the work performance on a day-to-day basis, was out of character. And we couldn't figure out what was going on.
But so you knew something was different. It wasn't just someone who was sleeping in and didn't care. There was some confusion in that.
Yeah, definitely, because this is someone who had indicated that they wanted it as a career, that they loved the job that they were doing, they wanted to move forward, and they were very good at doing the job. So in different conversations we had asked of, why and what was late, and here's the standard, you need to call in at this time. And there was just some light excuses, and okay, I'm good.
But at no point was there any disclosure or discussion about challenges that client was, that employee in your case was facing?
Unfortunately, that didn't come out until it came down to the point that it was starting to go into steps of progressive discipline. Because we had a real pattern happening. It was
you have a business to run.
Getting more reoccurrent. We had tried coaching, we had retrained, and then it would be great for a while. And then all of a sudden, I think that's what stood out so much, was this pattern of it being really good for maybe a month or two, and then all of a sudden, for just what appeared to be no apparent reason, the employee wasn't physically showing to be ill or anything.
Right, but something was
just
up and you instinctually knew.
Sporadically, for a week or two, would become very unreliable. And then, once again, talk, coach, back better. So it did go to the point where we started in steps of progressive discipline. Only then did the employee come forward and say, well, I'm struggling with some personal issues. And then the more the conversation went on, finally came out and disclosed that, I suffer from anxiety.
Which is a form of mental health, and it's very serious and very debilitating, absolutely.
And depression that went along with it. Mm-hmm. And this is what was happening. There were days for this employee when she got up that, this would hit her. And she really was struggling trying to deal with it. She thought a lot differently, too, when she was, dealing with anxiety or depression. So the thought of calling us either wasn't there right at the time, or it was just too traumatic.
Too daunting to pick up a phone
and to go forward with that and explain it. So once we realized, okay, this is what's taking place, then we said, okay, what can we do? How can we help you? Are there ways we can work with you?
And already you've done coaching, you've done the usual things, but it's only upon disclosure, it's sort of that last we're on the plank. And there's a disclosure coming now, which really, again, I need to encourage all listeners who are persons with disabilities or have family members who do not choose to disclose to understand that employers, especially those that want to work with you, such as Sharon and the group at Cambridge, really want to hear that so they can work with you appropriately. They're not looking to cut you out. But the more this goes on, the next question has to be, what else haven't you told us?
Yes.
Which is something that is so natural. So this is why I'm so pro disclosure in the appropriate ways. So you've now come to the point with this person that we need to resolve this. I now know there's an anxiety or mental health disability, and I don't want this to end. We see the value of this employee. Mm-hmm. We both know, you and I, Sharon, that the cost to retrain is about 35% of an annual salary.
Definitely.
So we're all trying not to retrain. Yeah. So the question is, now what?
So from there, we kept moving forward. And we ran into a few more roadblocks. So we really stepped back and took a look ourselves at the pattern that we saw. The shifts that were seen to be most of the struggle were early day. Mm-hmm. But yet the employee really, when we come back, suggest, okay, how about we can't put you in all evening shifts, but what if we tried to do that for the majority? So we did that for a bit. It was better.
And they expressed that as being a way, because again, what you did that's really important is you consulted. Very often people will put in place accommodations that haven't actually been talked to with the person who's going to be feeding it.
Yes.
So that may seem obvious to you, but I need to say to everybody, it's not obvious to a lot of people. They come up with the accommodation, then they bring it to the person. When you and I both know, Sharon, that you've got to work with that person to integrate a successful accommodation.
Oh, totally.
So you're offering different shifts because you see mornings are tough.
Yeah. We finally ended up, there was still some struggle, looked at it again, come back and said, do you want to try night audit? We need some support there. We have a gap right now. And that ended up being the resolution.
In other words, right person for the right job, Sharon.
Right person for the right job.
Isn't that
the
something?
Hours, it took away also thinking of the levels of business. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't stressful. That's something else we started taking a little bit of note of. When does it trigger maybe the anxiety a bit more?
So your commitment clearly resulted in a solution that could have gone very badly, very quickly if an employer really wasn't open. Now, that didn't cost you a lot of money.
No.
It took some time and some commitment to that employee. And again, when you think of the cost of retraining and then again hiring a person, that would be an incredible, opportunity. So when we come back, Sharon's going to ask me a little bit about some ways that we can support her better as she continues to be an employer of choice. We'll see you right back.